If you're preparing for Worlds or Nationals and want to work on some brands that are similar to Ravensburger, then in this video, I'm going to share with you 8 European brands that you can try. Hi, I'm Sandra, the Puzzling Canadian, and welcome to my channel. Well, it is springtime now, and that means that there's going to be a lot of national championships happening over the next 2 to 3 months. And that means a lot of speed puzzlers are going to be practicing, trying to get a hold of as many 500-piece puzzles so that they can practice. And many times, these speed puzzlers are going for those Ravensburger puzzles, and that's just because Nationals usually is sponsored by Ravensburger and Worlds sponsored by Ravensburger. So I know, myself included, I try to get a hold of as many Ravensburger puzzles to practice. However, sometimes these Ravensburger puzzles can be limited in your area or not even available or hard to come by in your area. So if that's the case and you want to continue with your speed puzzling practice or expand to different types of images, I have here recommended 8 European brands that you could try. And these were some brands that I worked on last year when I was preparing for Worlds. Now, why these type of brands? The main thing I am looking for when I'm looking for a puzzle brand to practice speed puzzling, I am looking to make sure that I'm getting pieces or piece cuts that are similar to Ravensburger. So I'm looking for a ribbon cut or a grid cut. And I'm also looking specifically for the same size, because when I practice, I am practicing in the same space that I would if I was in a competition. So doing those 500-piece puzzles that are larger pieces, you can do them. There's nothing wrong with that. However, I prefer to speed puzzle practice with ones that are the same as or same size as a Ravensburger, because then I know how to organize my pieces. I can practice doing so. Also, a lot of these brands are used for the online competition that they have in Europe. The European Jigsaw Jam uses a lot of these brands, and there's so many images within these brands which will help you prepare for any competition. So I'm going to reveal these brands right now in no particular order. Okay, first up is Trefl. Now, Trefl is a brand that is made in Poland. They have some nice images. I like the matte finish on their pieces, but I do find that their pieces feel a little bit thin. So I measured them, and the thickness came out to 1.7 millimeters. So I could feel it in the grip when I'm flipping the pieces over. They are kind of thin, and I do like sturdy pieces or thicker pieces when puzzling. This time around, I am working on this puzzle right here. It is called Favorite Sweets, and this was part of a competition for the Canadian Jigsaw Puzzle Association, their online competitions back in fall. I couldn't make it, so I didn't end up working on it, but they still send the puzzle, so I decided to work on it right now. And it's a lovely, colorful image to work on, and grids are nice to work on when you're doing speed puzzling because you can sit there and work on a section at a time. And it was pretty easy to start off and work on the borders and then target in on a certain section that I wanted to start off with. So that's what I ended up doing. And then picking out the colors for each of those sections. Sometimes it wasn't easy because I started to realize there were some repetitive patterns. If you take a look at the top right-hand corner, there are those, looks like lollipop swirls. And then at the bottom, it was the same thing. Also, the yellow, you would pick them out. There were different shades, but in 2 sections, the shades looked similar. They were bright yellow colors. So there are some repetitive patterns, making it a little bit more challenging. And then basically the 2 big sections were left to the end. I was working on that blue section. That seemed to be the last for me. And then all the yellow around the ice cream cone and the center image. But overall, this was a lovely image to work on, to speed puzzle. And my time came in at 1 hour, 33 minutes, and 43 seconds. So next up is Educa. Now this is a brand that is made in Spain. I have a few of them in my puzzle to do pile. I do mostly 500 pieces, but they have some really nice images, both in the 500 pieces and 1,000 and even larger piece counts. I really do like the images that they put out. Their pieces are a nice finish. a nice matte finish to them, and they are a thickness of 1.8 millimeters. So the one I decided to work on was this image here called California Dreaming. It's so colorful. I really like it. It's very pretty, but I knew that this would not be easy. So I started working on it, and I had a feeling the best way to work on it is from the bottom up. So I started with the road, worked up to the tires, and then that van had a lot of details. So you got to really look at those, the details on the pieces. So I was working my way up. The one thing about Educa, which I do not like, is they are such a loose fit. Out of all the brands, you touch the pieces and a whole bunch of them go flying. If you're the type of speed puzzler who likes assembling pieces outside the puzzle and then moving them into the middle, you cannot do that with this brand. They will fall apart. But other than that, the brand is very good. Now with this specific image, as I was working my way up, I knew that blue and green section would give me a hard time because there was not much variance in the shading in that color, and it did. That blue section was hard. It slowed me down. There were false fits, and I ended up spending a lot of time in that section, causing my final time to be a little bit higher than I wanted it to be. I came in at the end at 1 hour, 59 minutes, and 16 seconds. So next up is Clementoni. Now, Clementoni is made in Italy, and I hadn't done too many Clementoni puzzles up until last year. And then last year, I ended up working on a lot of 500-piece puzzles to practice my speed puzzling. And I liked it because they have some good photography ones, but also good illustration ones and images that will challenge you. So I have a lot stocked now in my to-do pile, and they have a nice finish to it. Their finish is almost like the Ravensburger finish. I think it's like a linen finish. I'm not sure if that's what they call it. And the thickness is very good. I like their thickness. It comes in at 1.9 millimeters. So the image I decided to work on this time around is this one here, and it is called The Old Shoe House. I started off when I'm doing these type of puzzles, if there's water or sky, those are the ones that I usually gravitate to first. And I went to the top, started working on those trees with the pretty pink flowers and the sky. The boot in the middle, easy to work on. And then you have all this green around. So you really got to look at the different shades of green when you're working through this puzzle. One thing I will mention with Clementoni is that there is a lot of puzzle dust. So if you are a puzzler who doesn't like it, it does have, every time I open up a puzzle, there's always a lot of puzzle dust, and you sort of just brush it to the side. It really doesn't bother me too much because I do like the quality of their pieces, and I do like their images. So I ended up working on this one, got it all done in 1 hour, 16 minutes and 11 seconds. And I was quite surprised with that time. I didn't think I'd come in that fast. That's a good time for me. So next up is Anatolian. These puzzles are made in Turkey. They have a nice thickness to them, comes in at 1.9 millimeters. Nice images. Their pieces, though, are glossy. So as compared to the other ones, it will have a shine when you're working on them. So the one I decided to work on was this cute image right here, which is called Naughty Kittens. So it's a pretty image. When I started working on it, the first thing I went to, of course, was that window at the very corner. And it seemed to work by doing the wall and where the picture frame is. And I started working there. And then you have like the little kittens down the bottom. You have some yarn. It was easy to gravitate to that section. And then I left the red chair to the very end. And if you take a look, I was constantly getting up, looking over the puzzle in that section. And that's because there was a glare coming from the light. And the best way to see the shades in that chair was to go over. So that's what happens when you have a glossy finish. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to take a look at the detail on the pieces because they're shining and you got to look at the shading. But overall, I have done them before. I like their images. With this one, I came in at 1 hour, 22 minutes, and 23 seconds. So then I moved on to a brand called Pieces and Peace. Now this brand is made in France. They have great quality pieces, nice thickness to their pieces. They came in at 2 millimeters, so I really like that. A nice matte finish to them. And their images, many of them are illustrated images, so I like working on those. The one I decided to work on for this round was one called Dream House. A beautiful color in them. When I started working on it, I decided to, after I pulled out the edges, is to focus on the middle section there where that door is. That seemed to be the easiest because they have a lot of signs, a variation of colors, so I focused on that first. Then I moved over to the other side where they had the hammock and the monkey. And then I tried to figure out all that foliage. That is what slowed me down a little bit with this puzzle. There's many shades of green. The one at the top corner was easiest because it was a bright green, but the stuff at the bottom was a little bit challenging and around that palm tree. And then once I managed that, what was left were those white pieces. And it wasn't too bad to do those white pieces. Some areas were a little bit shade darker than the others, so I managed to get it done. And I came in at a time at 1 hour, 41 minutes, and 19 seconds. Next up is the Schmidt brand. Now this is a brand from Germany, and I would have to say this brand is the closest to Ravensburger that I have found. Their quality, I just love their quality. Their quality is top-notch, thick, sturdy, tight-fitting pieces. It's just a thrill every time I work on a Schmidt puzzle, no matter what the piece count. Their thickness actually came in at 2.2 millimeters, the highest out of all of the brands I was working on. And they have beautiful images. The problem I have being here in North America is the nicer images I personally find are in Europe. And I can't get those types of images. There's a limited selection to what we get here in North America. So whenever I'm ordering from the UK, if I'm doing a big order, I make sure I add in some Schmidt puzzles because I find the European selection is much more or much nicer than what I find here in North America. So I ended up working on this one here. This one I did find here in North America. It's a cottage puzzle called Romantic Country House. Now I've done this type of image before in different brands. I think a Ravensburger brand, this type of cottage here, and it's pretty imaged. But sometimes it's not easy. There's a lot of foliage around there. And I started working on it. It has that nice little purple border there. So again, with this one, like I was mentioning before, I started with the water, then I moved to the top, to the sky. Tried to work on the other foliage around the cottage house. In the past, I have found when I worked on these cottage houses, the roof was challenging, but I didn't find it too bad because I think there were various shades in the straw roof. So I was able to work on that roof, and I left the white section of the house to the end. I did have a great time working on this one, and I came in at 1 hour, 33 minutes, and 39 seconds. So next up is the Bluebird brand, and they are made in France. I didn't do too many last year, but I've now started to work on more of them throughout this year, and I do like their quality. They're good quality, nice finish. Their thickness comes in at 1.9 millimeters, so a good quality brand. And they do use them quite often at the online competitions in Europe, the European Jigsaw Jam. So the one that I selected was this one here called Shaggy's Surf Shack. That's a tongue twister. But this one here, I selected it because this was one of them that they did use on those online competitions in Europe. So I wanted to work on it, and it's a very nice image. I always like working on a beach scene. So with this one here, there's a lot of detail to start with or work with. And I started with the sky. That was the easiest thing to do, and then started to work down. I did pull out the pieces for the palm tree. It's something that's easy identifiable, but when I try to put it together, sometimes I would get stuck. So I quickly moved on to other areas of the puzzle, and that's what I did with this one. Because there's so much detail, I just constantly, if I got stuck, moved on to another area. I like that with a puzzle because you're not stuck in one section. And then I left to the end the sand, and the sand is nice because there's different shades, so it wasn't too bad to work on. Overall, I ended up finishing this puzzle at 1 hour, 31 minutes, and 53 seconds. And the last brand I want to share with you today is the Castorland brand. Now, it is made in Poland. They have a lot of images that are photography images. So if you are in North America and can't get a hold of those photography images, because they do that a lot in Europe, but you don't always see that in North America. But if you want to practice those type of images, you can go to this brand. And that's why I puzzle Castorland. Their pieces are a little bit thin, just like the Trefl. Their thickness came in at 1.6 millimeters. But I'm okay. I'm willing to overlook that because they have those photography images that I want to practice. And for this round, I selected this image here. It is called The Old Town of Stockholm, Sweden. I'm not used to doing photography puzzles, and especially ones like this with a lot of buildings. So I wanted to try this so that I can practice. And when I started working on this one here, I decided I'm going to leave the sky to the end because it looked like there was not too much difference in the shading. So I started from the bottom. The water is always easy. There's different shades of water. So I worked on it from the bottom up, and then tried to do some of the buildings that kind of stood out, like that yellow building. And then when I was getting stuck, I pulled out all the pieces that created the horizon. And once I put the horizon at the top, then I started working from that portion down, and then it all started to come together. But you're really looking at a lot of the detail because there's so much detail in each piece because it is a one with like a cityscape. So I finished that in their bottom, and then all that was left was the blue sky, and it wasn't too bad to put together. So I ended up finishing this puzzle at 1 hour, 38 minutes, and 58 seconds. So there you have it, 8 brands that are similar to Ravensburger that can be used for speed puzzle practice, but they also can be used for casual puzzling. I have puzzled a lot of these brands just on a casual basis, and I really like them. So if you wanted to give these brands a try, in North America, you can find them at Puzzles Canada and Jigsaw Jungle. In Europe, well, these are European brands, so I suspect you could probably find them at your local puzzle store in your area, probably Amazon. So now, which is my favorite to speed puzzle out of all these 8 brands? Well, you may have guessed it already. It is the Schmidt brand. It is the closest to Ravensburger, excellent quality, and a very enjoyable images. So not only for speed puzzling, but when it comes to casual puzzling, I try to pick up some Schmidt puzzles whenever I'm placing orders from European stores. So that's my top one. And a close runner-up is the Clementoni brand, a brand that I've only started working on more frequently starting last year. I like it because of the illustrations that they have, but they also have a lot of photography puzzles. So if you wanted to work on those, they have them, and their images are challenging. So it helps me become a better speed puzzler. Thank you for visiting my channel and clicking this video. I would like to wish all those speed puzzlers who are going to be going to their country's national championship good luck with the competition. And for those casual puzzlers, I hope you've now been introduced to some new brands and you're willing to give them a try. Until next time, happy puzzling.